So in this short recording, we're going to look at some of the basic functions in Excel and how to format, how to lay it out, and also importantly, how to transfer calculations from Excel into Microsoft Word. Because realistically, your exam now is going to be take at home, an online exam, and you're going to be using Microsoft Excel to speed up your calculations, and you're probably going to be using Microsoft Word as your single document that you're either going to submit as a Word doc or you're going to submit as a PDF. So we'll have to see how we transfer from one to the other. So again, we're just going to look at the basic things initially. Generally, you'll probably only be using one tab. You don't have to name it anything, but you can have another sheet open if you wanted to transfer between two different questions. Call that question 1 and double click and call that question 2. So it's just functionality if you want to be able to move around and keep things clean if you're doing 2 or 3 different calculations. Or what you might be doing is saving them and coming back to them at a later stage, looking to how you laid out a previous question attempt. The other thing in terms of typing, you just highlight the cell, very straightforward. We'll look at, for example, product IRO, and we'll say product trike. So say we're doing a costing example before. Now, remember, if you are going to be copying them into Microsoft Word, the first thing I nearly always do is I press Control A. That highlights the whole sheet, and I will put it to Times New Roman, and I put it to 12. Because that's the format that I always use. So for example, when I copy these in eventually to Microsoft Word, it's going to be in Times New Roman and it's going to be in 12. It just takes usually a second to copy in. So it saves you a lot of hassle having to try to do it twice. So it's Times New Roman and 12. So just bear that in mind. I would always set it up at the start, what font you want. So when you do copy and paste in, it's done. And Control A highlights the whole sheet. So then what we might have, for example, material cost, labor, and that will get direct cost. And then we'll have overheads, just as an example we've used before, and that will get full cost. So simple things like that. If you want to fit them, you can just double click here where the arrow comes, and that will automatically fit you to whatever writing you have. So if I make a lot of writing here, for example, it's just going to automatically cut it off. So if I have something in here, you're not going to be able to see what's going on. So the benefit of Excel is you double click here and it makes it come out as far as you want. So just small things like that as you navigate around. So we put in the material 20, labor 5, 15, and say labor 12. Now first thing is I like to lay them out and keep them neat. I would highlight the columns. You highlight them up the top and you can here center them like you would center text in Microsoft Word. That's the first thing I like to do. You can also get the numbers, and you can, for example, even just a cell, I might want to align that to the left, or I might want to align these to the right. So it is possible to move around within the cells as well, but I like to have everything centered to keep it nice and neat. The other thing to note is you can format your numbers. So if I want to format all my numbers here, I can go to Control and 1 is a shortcut, or you can go over here and say, I want to bring that out 2 decimals. So you say here, bring that out 2 decimal places. Or you can bring it back to 1. So that's what those figures are for here. Or if I want to press Control and 1, it allows me to format them that way. It brings up format cells, and I say I want to go to 1 decimal place, or maybe I want to go to 2. If I have a bigger figure like 1,000, I have the choice then of using the 1,000 separator, which will give me there, and I have the choice of then going to 1 or 2 decimals. So just in terms of making it neat, I would always try and have that all done at the start. So you can tidy those up as you go along, but presentation is a big thing as well. So that means then I'm going to add up these to get my direct cost. 2 ways of going about that. You can press Control and U, which will underline the number, or you can press Control and Z to undo that. Or you can come up here and you can underline or put a border on the text cell itself. See, we put a border on that cell. So that allows you to show that these are added up. And then you can either do plus, click this cell, plus click that cell, and that will give you the formula. So you can do equals this plus this, and you can use your arrows as well. So you don't have to click, you can move the arrow function around your laptop, that will get it to you as well. The alternative way of doing that is equals sum, and put in brackets if you have a load of them to add up. But we have only 2, so you can do them individually. But sum does that as well. So either way equals sum or add them up directly. Overheads today, we'll say we've done it already, 12, and we'll say 10. and then you can add up and say equals sum, and just highlight all of them to sum anything in that, or you can just do equals arrow up to that cell and then do a plus and then to this cell. So simple things like that can be useful. It's just coincidence though both came to the same full cost. If I wanted to know what percentage overheads are of full cost, I would say I want that overhead divided by, so the divide by sign is the kind of backslash, this full cost. Now note the way it's presented as a decimal. If I want to convert that to percentages, there's a little function up here, the percentage, and that also applies then to 2 or 3 decimal places or to no decimal place. So you have a function like that if you want to. So that's all. A lot of that is just playing around with it, getting used to the format and the styles as you go along. One thing I will advise you is, if I take this now, so I highlight all of these cells and I copy and just Control and C, and then you come to Word and you Control and V, it copies it in nice and neatly. And you can even, if you want to click that table that highlights the whole thing, and center the whole table in Microsoft Word to keep it neater. Now, the big danger here, and what I want you to watch is, there's no formulas here. So I don't know where that 12 and 10 came from. So if you're ever doing calculations and I don't know where that 27% comes from. So if I was doing that, that's not best practice. I would take that out, highlight it and press backspace, gets rid of it. And I would go back here and I'd say, I will show where this is coming from. Now to do this, because when you copy into Microsoft Word, I can't see the formulas. And I don't want Excel files submitted. I only want a single document. It's for external purposes as well. If you press the apostrophe first and then do equals 10 over 37, watch what happens. It doesn't disappear. It stays. So the apostrophe disappears, but the 10 over 37 now is visible. Whereas if I just did equals 10 over 37, it would actually treat it as a formula and it'd do the calculation. That's not what I want. I want you to physically see that. So you put the comma first, not the comma, that, comma here. So apostrophe, sure I say. My basic English is not great. And then you go equals x over y. And that's a big benefit when you're doing Excel, to show where something is coming from, because you might do a calculation here, but when I copy that now into Word and press Control V, and I can center it, just click it and center. Now I can see where the 27% is coming from. So there's no fear of me losing marks in that regard. All right. If you want to be even neater, for example, you want to put a border around it, you highlight the whole thing here, and then I go to here, the borders, and I say I want an outside border, or a thick outside border. So we go outside border first. That gives me a nice outside border. So if I copy that into Word, it's now nice and clean with a box around it. Or maybe you want a thicker outside border, that allows you as well. So when I copy that in, it makes it stand out, and that might be useful as you go around. So Microsoft Word doesn't differentiate the thickness of the border, just the existence of it. So that's small things that you want to look at. Again, same with the text. You can bold the text, Control and B, or press the B up here. You can italics, you can underline. Italics is Control and I, underline, Control and U, or use the functionality up here. Exact same as Microsoft Word. And they're the main functions that you need to think about when you're using Excel. If you want to add, it's just arrow up to that cell, plus, and then use your arrows to navigate over to that cell. So if I put 1 in here and 1 in here, it adds to 2. So it's dynamic as it moves along. If I want to take away 2, and then you put minus and you arrow up. So you can either use the arrows or you can point and click. That's the minus. If I want to multiply, it's 2, the asterisk times 1. That's multiplication. So all of this is on your keyboard. You can use the arrows, you can use point and click with the mouse. Divide then is going to be 2, the backspace, or not the backspace, the backslash divided by 1. And they're the most that you're going to need in AC548, your basic operations. And it's about presentation then. It's about having it nice and neat, being able to copy and paste it straight in, and being able to, again, importantly, show your formulas as you go down along. There are, of course, a host of other more complicated formulas that you can do. Uh, but the nice thing is, for example, one complicated formula might be, we'll take, for example, SUMIF. So SUMIF will take a row or a column and say it will only sum them based on certain conditions. So you might say sum them if it's bigger than 15, or sum if it is a male, or sum if it is a female. But the nice thing I like about Excel is if you do this, you put the function and open the bracket, and you double click on it, it tells you everything you need to know about the function. What the inputs are, what the syntax is, so it's very helpful. Now you won't need to know it for AC548, but certainly in other things it can speed up your time, and there's a huge range of uh, properties associated with something like that. But they are the main ones that I'd be looking for you to use in terms of formatting. You can, of course, color code it. You can put it in a yellow cell. You can put the text to be red. Any of those basic things, but hopefully there is a given. What you might also want to do as well, if you're putting a heading on something, is you could take all of those, and I'll add, if you want to quickly add a row, Alt-IR, in quick succession. If you want to quickly add a column, Alt-IC, and that will add a number of columns. So depending on how many columns if I want to add 2 columns, I'll highlight 2 and press Alt-IC. It's added 2 new ones there. If I want to add 2 rows here, I'll highlight the 2 rows and add Alt-IR. They're the shortcuts. But if I wanted to put a heading here and I want it to be centered across the whole table, you can put all of these and do merge. This will merge all of those cells together, and I will say product costing example. And I'll press Control and B to bold it. So now it's centered across the whole thing. You can merge cells if you want. So there's plenty of ways and functionality. Look, that just gave you an idea of how you might approach it. And I can take that whole thing now and I can copy that into Microsoft Word, because that's the one I'm going to be submitting a lot of my assignments on, or my overall submission. And you see it's presented like that. Nice and neat and easy for the examiner to follow. And then you can do your little narrative underneath then as commentary, depending on what the exam requirements are. But the functionalities here of Word are very similar to the functionalities of Excel, with a bit extra that's going on. Right? Now, there is a huge amount of other functionality. Look, that's well beyond the scope here. We could spend days just doing Excel, but I just wanted to give you the basics there that can help you do calculations, and then help you go around and try as many as you can, because you're going to be doing them on Excel, you're going to be doing them on the laptop for the exam, so get the practice in as early as possible. And of course, if there is anything else that you're wondering about Excel that I might have done in a recording, do not be afraid to ask. I'm more than happy to answer any of those questions. Just ask.